we have $660 million to spend on police misconduct payouts since 2004. It's a staggering number, not just costing taxpayers, but it's costing us our confidence, I think, in the system. Could you ever have imagined that this would just be, sign off on this check, sign off on that check?
No, and in my career as a reporter, it reminds me so much of the priest abuse. Unfortunately, that's been still in the headlines as well. Writing a check and not the reform. Now, there are some things that are going to change. We have a new superintendent, and we're going to have body cams.
Right.
And that might help fight some of this problem. But these aren't the only case. There are still cases in line waiting to be settled.
Waiting to be settled. The latest case this week, Philip Coleman, who was dragged from his cell and tasered repeatedly and ultimately died. That settlement is reported to be about $4.9 million. Laquan McDonald, $5 million. I guess we've put the price on a life at about $5 million is what it is in Chicago. But at what point does the price become so much that taxpayers demand something more than payouts?
Well, we have. I mean, I think we for far too long, the city has been conveniently writing checks, but without the reforms necessary. We've had study after study that was published, and it sat on the shelf. So now we've reached the point because of our fiscal crisis where there's real attention to the sheer amount of dollars that we're paying because of an unwillingness to change policies at the very top, from the fifth floor, really, because that influences public safety policy. And this latest payout, I think, is just further example of that.
It's such an odd thing. Is there some sort of equation for this? Like, it's such an awful tragedy, Philip Coleman's death, but would $49 million
would that be better?
Bring it back?
Yep.
Would $490 million? Like, why $4.9 million?
Well,
and are we setting this standard now? And it seems like we are for any sort of death where that money could be used on reforms or education or something.
Could be used to things that might prevent some of the violence, either
well,
police or...
Alderman Sawyer said that they were trying to find the balance between what taxpayers would be willing to pay, so it's not too expensive for taxpayers and the families'
and being
interest.
fair to the families.
But again, it seems to me quite arbitrary. I think they're just going, the Laquan McDonald case perhaps set a precedent, and so they don't want to veer too far from that. So,
but Alderman Sawyer also said that these payouts aren't what will make a change. It is prosecuting and sentencing those responsible. Yet each of these cases was found by the Independent Police Review Board to have been justified or to have found no wrongdoing. What good is that board? They can't even pick a police superintendent, apparently, not to the confidence of the mayor.
But the police board has to be so frustrated by that, to have had this process of 4 months vetting the candidates, coming up with 3 finalists, although one of the finalists is now, we find out, has been a part of an internal investigation for perhaps, allegedly, helping black officers score well on the lieutenant exam. So you say, wait a second, how did that happen? How did he get through the process?
One of the finalists and also an associate of the ultimate choice.
Right.
But that's just an accusation, and we'll look for more information on that. But another one of the finalists actually said he was offered the job, and then it was rescinded, and then the mayor said that's not true, which means somebody's not telling the truth. And I would hate to think it was one of the finalists that the board chose.
I find it very hard to believe. I spoke to him many, many times, and he was offered the job.
But nonetheless, if you're $660 billion since 2004, it would seem that radical change might be in the works. Alderman Hairston has proposed, let's just do away with this board and do another more citizen focused board.
You also have the CPAC, which is going for citizen accountability. So they want to completely abolish the system of hierarchy in place and put citizens in charge of the police. You have another ordinance that was proposed by the Community Renewal Society. They're calling for an independent monitor, a little bit different from what Alderman Hairston was proposing, to come in and take over what IPRA was doing. So there are some more radical proposals. I think the question is, what reforms is IPRA doing now under their new leadership, and then how do you balance that with some of the more radical suggestions that are coming in?
And I got to ask, Michael, do you think you can legislate or regulate this problem? It seems to be more a body cam doesn't make me like someone better. It doesn't make me respect them more. It seems like there's something in the hearts and minds here between the community and the police on both sides that needs to change.
I was just having a discussion with someone in the green room who I know In the Loop's going to do a story on later about the need for police officers to be involved in the communities more and to have people in the community know the police officers more so they're familiar with them. So the immediate reaction to hearing a police officer's name or police in general isn't this negative one.
And fear.
And vice versa. Police shouldn't think about going to a particular neighborhood and saying this is going to be a really bad situation. Let's start on a positive foot and try to prevent these awful, awful things from happening.
Well, and the recruitment that has just been done for the next class to take the exam, really an outreach through the community to make sure that the officers look more like the community.
Even though activists will tell you that just because an officer is black doesn't mean you can necessarily expect a better experience. So it's about humanizing one another. There's a person behind that badge. You know, there's a child behind that, you know, angry-looking 15-year-old. So,
Yeah, I think that's the key word, is to humanize, and also the culture within the department. It has to reflect that humanization. A lot of the frustrations are the fact that when things have been uncovered, there's been such a lack of accountability, no process, no transparency, and so the community largely is feeling that they've been sort of brushed to the side. So now it's come to the forefront.
I talk about a lot of controversial issues on my radio show that don't have meeting in the middle on. Abortion, for example, you know, some people you're just not going to convince on.
Polarizing
I feel
things.
like this does have a solution. This issue does have a positive solution that leads to less crime, more trust between communities and police officers, and we're slowly but surely getting there, I
And
think.
of course,
Very slowly.
and more trust does lead to less crime. There are some who said that police being under the spotlight right now has caused them to, as one person put it months ago, kind of curl up into the fetal position and not be as proactive as they have been. Big spike in violence in the first quarter of this year. We're on track to, you know, to kill the statistics, excuse the pun,